Chapter 18. Clooney massed his forces in the roadside ditch opposite Redwall Abbey. He stood well back in the meadow behind the ditch, surrounded by his captains. Here, where he was out of range, he could direct the entire operation. But at the moment, he was not having things all his own way. From the start, he did not have many archers. Rats were notoriously bad at bow-making and fletching of arrows. From the ramparts of Redwall, and the field mice and abbey mice sent down volley after volley of tiny arrows, which, while they had no great killing power, were causing much wounding and discomfort in the ranks of Clooney's horde. Standing beneath his banner, which was rammed into earth, Clooney clacked his tail. Redtooth, Darkclaw, tell the sling throwers to stand ready. When I give the signal, I want to see a good heavy barrage of stones hitting the top of the parapet. They'll make them keep their heads down. Frogblood, Scumnose, you two will organize the gangs with the scaling ladders and grappling hooks. See that they all get up on the top of the wall and no blunders. The rat captain marched off to the ditch to make ready. Clooney held his tail up to give the signal. On the top of the wall, the mouse archers kept their relentless hail of arrows into the ditch. Constance strode up and down, holding a heavy cudgel in her paw as she shears them all. That's the stuff to give 'em, mice. Keep those bows twanging. Knowing the supply of arrows was not endless, the badger looked at the heaps of rubble and stone at the parapet's edge. Brother Rufus, formal, be ready to shift that lot overboard at a moment's notice. Smack, clang, bang, thud. A hail of sharp stones and pebbles whizzed upwards, rattling against the Minotaur as Clooney waved his tail in the meadow below. Taken unaware, several mice were felled and a young mole lay stunned. Get your heads down, everyone, lie flat, Constance shouted. The defenders instantly obeyed as the showers of missiles increased. Running along the parapet, bent double, the abbot cried out, Stretch your bearers, over here, help me and get these casualties down into the cloisters. Winifred the otter lay alongside Constance and whispered to her, Hear that scraping, Clooney? Clooney's lot is putting up something against the walls. I guess they're trying to climb up where we've got to lie low. Even as Winifred spoke, two grappling hooks with climbing ropes attached to them clanged over the parapet and lodged in the joints. Stay low, my friends, whispered Constance. Give them a bit of time to get off the ground. I want plenty of rats to be up high before we make our move. Pass the word along. Below in the wet meadow, Redtooth waved his cutlass and laughed wildly. Your plan is working out, Chief. Look, there's old Fangburn and his gang nearly to the top wall. Clooney lifted his visor to get a better view. It was too late to call out against what he saw happen next. A veritable avalanche of earth and rocks cascaded over the parapet. It smashed straight into the main ladder. Rats screaming aloud and gasped at midair as they were swept from the ladder to the road below. The ladder fell sideways from the cannoning into one another as they sat beside it. As both ladders fell, there was a scene of mass chaos. Badly wounded and shocked, the survivors of the roadway tried to crawl back to the safety of the ditch, only to be buried beneath rubble which thundered down on them. Many lay trapped beneath the heavy ladders that had fallen. The air resounded with screams and moans. Clooney ranted and swore. Leaving his standard, he rushed across the meadow. Taking the ditch in a single leap, he darted across the road. Grasping at a hanging rope, he began to haul himself up, claw over claw. As the solitary beaver gnawed from the last strand, the rope parted. Clooney fell from a fair height and sprawled on the dusty road in an undignified heap. Clooney flung himself into the ditch. Regrouping the sling throwers and a few archers, he ordered them to await at his command. At the top of the walls, the last climbing rope had been severed. A hearty cheer rent the air as the Redwall defenders broke cover to survey their handiwork. Fire! Clooney roared. Stones and arrows sped upwards with devastating effect. Several mice and woodlanders cried out and fell. The results heartened Clooney. All was not lost. He began devising a new plan. In Mossflower Wood, Ragear was struggling with a rope that bound him to the oak tree. He could hear far-off sounds which only meant one thing. His chief was attacking the abbey. Straining his neck downwards at an uncomfortable angle, Ragear was able to get his teeth into the tough climbing rope. If he managed to free himself, he might be able to sneak back and join the horde. He could mingle with them, and they deny that he was ever been missing. Clooney would also take a lenient view of his desertion if he could disguise himself during the battle. The rope tasted foul. Rager could tell by the scent that it had once belonged to Shadow. He never liked that surly, poker-faced rodent. Rager congratulated himself as his teeth bit through another strand. Ha! Take that rope, and that. No rope can beat Rager prisoner for long. He 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 he. Poor old Shadow. If only you could see your lovely rope now. Rager straightened up for a moment to ease his neck. Then the laughter died on his lips. A horrified gurgle bubbled from his throat. Icy claws of terror gripped his chest. Swaying hypnotically at a foot from his face was the biggest, strongest, most evil-looking adder that had ever been born. The rat was completely petrified. The breath seemed to freeze in his lungs. The sinister, blunt head moved in a lazy rhythm. Its forked tongue flickered endlessly in and out, and the round, bead-like jet eyes never moved from this instant. Its voice was dry like leaves rustling in an autumn breeze. Asmodeus, Asmodeus, it hissed. So kind of you to untie yourself, rat. Come with me. I will show you eternity. Asmodeus, Asmodeus. It struck with lightning speed. All that Rager felt was a sudden sharp sting at the side of his neck. Its limbs became flecked, his eyesight surrounded by dark mist. The last words Rager ever heard on the earth was the utter in the adder's sibilant hiss. Asmodeus, Asmodeus. Clooney scratched in the floor of the ditch with his claw. It was all there, the design for his next move. He would attack the abbey secretly from the moss flower side. It would be a surprise maneuver. A hand-picked squad led by him would carry out the mission. Dressed in Clooney's war helmet and armor, Redtooth would stay back in the meadow. His disguise would be sufficient to fool the defenders from the distance of the high walls. The rats in the ditch were ordered to continue pressing home the attack until Clooney and the party scaled the walls from behind and fought their way across the grounds to open the abbey gates. After issuing some orders to his remaining captains, Clooney, accompanied by a score of assorted rats, weasels, stoats, and ferrets, crept off along the course of the ditch. They carried with them a long plank from St. Ninian's lynch gate fence. Silently they traveled northly in the northerly direction until they were out of sight of the walls. Climbing out the ditch, they crossed the road into mossflower wood. Clooney sat on a fallen tree trunk and told his squad what was required of them. I'll wait with the plank carriers. The rest of you split up and search for an area of any big high trees growing near the abbey walls. Make sure that the tree you pick is higher than the wall itself. Not too difficult to climb. Got that? Right. Get going. Clooney watched them strike off into the undergrowth. His previous good mood had deserted him. He was working himself into a foul temper over the day's performance by his mighty conquering horde. Shown up by a simple tactic of the woodland creatures and mice, he snorted and dug his powerful claws into the rotting tree trunk, sending beetles and woodlice scurrying as he tore out a chunk of spongy timber. Oh, he had them frightened at first. As the commander, he knew the power of fright, but they had once gained the upper hand in the nursing skirmish. The mice lost their fear and became bolder. That was when the battle had started to go against him. Granted, he had scored one or two small victories, but that was nothing to brag about. He couldn't use them as an example to put fresh heart in his troops. Clooney's only hope was that the mice would become overconfident and eventually make a mistake. It was an old waiting game. Just let them make one slip. That was all he needed. Meanwhile, he had a greater obstacle to overcome than the mice. The walls. It was the same accursed walls that were ruining all his plans. Clooney tore viciously at the rotting log until great chunks of it flew through the air. If this scene worked, he wouldn't have to worry about walls anymore. He would be inside those walls like a fox among day-old chickens. Clooney sniffed the air. His senses told him that the searchers were returning. Chief Thief and a ferret named Kilkenny came crashing out of the underbrush. They were trembling and twitching. Both looked like they were badly scared. It was some time before Clooney could get any sense out of them. Chief Thief spoke haltingly, glancing back fearfully over his shoulder. We got a bit lost, Chief. Lost? Where? Clooney snarled. Kilkenny pointed a shaky claw. Over that way, your honor, and we didn't find any great strapping oak. Was it close to the wall? Chief Thief shook his head. No, Chief. It was further out into the woods. Looked Look what I found wrapped around the trunk. He held out a chewed and broken climbing rope. Clooney snatched it. It looks like Shadow's climbing rope. He's dead. What are you fools trying to tell me? Kilkenny whimpered pitifully. It's regular, Your Honor. Clooney seized the unlucky pair and shook them soundly. Have you both gone raving mad? Do you mean to tell me you're frightened of that old fool Ragier? Chief Sleep fell on his knees sobbing. But you don't see him, Chief. He was just lying there. His face was all swollen and his tongue was sticking out. It had gone purple. Ugh. It was all sort of bloated like... It was horrible. Kilkenny bobbed his head in vigorous agreement. Aye, so 'twas. Don't we see him out with our very eyes, sir? Poor Rigger. He was going backwards all the time. Going backwards, echoed Clooney? Indeed he was. And your man here says to me, he says, there's something pulling Rigger along. Sure, we couldn't see what it was for all the bushes. So we pulled them to one side between us. And what did we see? Well, what did you see? Clooney barked irritably. Kilkenny stopped and shuddered. He spoke incredulously, as if unable to believe what he saw. We saw the biggest snake that you ever clapped your eyes on, the father of all serpents. He had poor Rigger's body by the feet and was dragging him along backwards. Clooney's one eye widened. What did the serpent do when he saw you? It let go of Rigger and looked at us, squeaked G-Sleep. The serpent stared at us. It kept saying, Asmodeus, Asmodeus. Clooney scratched his head with a sharp, dirty claw. Asmodeus? What's that supposed to mean? Do you not know? 'Tis the dreaded name of the devil himself, sir, wailed the ferret. I know that because me old mother told me so, and she said never to look a serpent in the eye, so I says to me mate here, G-Sleep, says I, don't look, run for your life, and that's exactly what we did, sir. Oh, and you never know how horrible it was. I'd rather be tied to a blazing barn than go back there, so I would. The great scaly body of the... Quiet, fool, said Clooney. I hear the others coming back. Now straighten yourself up and not a word to anyone about the serpent thing, or you'll feed my serpent across your back. Clooney's long tail waved menacingly under their noses. They took his point. A weasel called Scrag came running up. He reported smartly with great efficiency. High tree near the abbey wall, Chief. Helm, I think. Much higher than a wall. Lots of branches jutting out. Just the job for climbing. How far to this tree? Clooney asked. About 10 minutes' march to the east, Scrag replied. When the rest of the party arrived back, Clooney had them form up in single file. They marched eastward at a smart pace. The high tree did prove to be an elm, an ancient giant covered in gnarled bumps and handy branches. Clooney sized it up exactly what he wanted, a perfect distance from the wall. He turned to his commando squad. Listen, we're going to climb this tree. When we get up high enough, I'll find a strong branch that we can bridge to the wall with the plank. If we go carefully, the mice won't suspect a thing. Before they can gather their wits about them, we'll be inside Redwall.